Uncharted 4 is not only my favourite game in the Uncharted series, but it's also my favourite game from Naughty Dog. Now there is a lot of things that I can cover about Uncharted 4. A lot of great things that I absolutely love about this game and why I and many others hold it in such high regard. Uncharted 4 probably has one of the best, conclusions to a series that I've ever seen. And that, on top of many other things, I will cover in this video today. So let's start with the story of Uncharted 4. Now Uncharted 4 takes place about 2 or 3 years after the events of Uncharted 3. Now Nathan Drake has actually retired from, treasure hunting and all the stuff that he did in the previous games. He has a regular job, he's married to Elena, he has a normal life now, which is very out of, if you've played the other Uncharted games, it looks very, strange and out of place for Nathan Drake to actually, hold a regular job and all that. But as you play through the earlier missions of the game, you can tell that Nate really does miss the glory days of treasure hunting and adventure. This is when his long-lost brother, Sam, comes into the mix. Now Sam, what we find out in this game, actually died before the events of the first Uncharted game, and it's revealed that he's still alive, and that he spent 15 years in prison. He tracks Nate down. To Nate's surprise, he finds out his older brother is actually alive after all these years, and he tells Nate that he needs to find treasure for a man by the name of Hector, what was it again? For a man by the name of Hector Alcazar, who is a powerful man, who demanded that Sam find the treasure of Henry Avery, and that he splits half of the proceeds with him. Now, of course, Sam tells Nate this, and tells Nate that, you have to help me with this. Obviously, Nate is against this because he is retired. And as much as he's eager to get back into adventure, he's a married man now with a regular job. And obviously he wouldn't want to put Elena through the stress of worrying. But eventually, after hearing out Sam's story, he decides to help Sam recover the treasure. And makes up a story to Elena that he needs to go on a vacation due to work. Now, while looking for the treasure, they reunite with Sully, and for those of you who've played the other Uncharted games, you know who Sully is, Sully's one of the best characters in the series, So they meet up with Sully, and they also run into Rafe Adler, who, as we learn, is actually an old associate of Nate and Sam. Now, Rafe is looking for Henry Avery's treasure as well, and it turns out that Rafe has the help of Nadine Ross, who is the leader of a mercenary group. Now Rafe went to go was looking for Henry Avery's treasure alongside Sam and Nate 15 years ago when they were all in prison together. Except this time, Rafe is no longer a friend, he's an enemy. And he'll do whatever it takes to find this treasure before Nate and Sam. So not only do they have to worry about a very dangerous man who will kill Sam if they don't find the treasure, but they have to worry about their old friend Rafe Adler, who is looking for the treasure for his own means, and to pursue his own goals. And of course, eventually, Elena catches wind of Nate's lie that it was a work-related business trip. She then finds out not only that Nate lied and is actually on another adventure, but that he has a brother named Sam, who she had never heard of. She'd never even heard Nate talk about him. So, of course, Elena isn't happy about this, and her and Sully part ways with Nate and Sam. Nate and Sam then go to look for Henry Avery's treasure by themselves. is where they find the island of Libertalia. But of course, Rafe and Nadine also follow them there, and obviously are right on their tail with finding, you know, clues about the treasure and whatnot. Eventually, as we learn, Sam is not actually in debt to Hector Alcazar, and that it turns out Hector Alcazar had actually died a year prior to Sam's release, and that it was Rafe who had actually bailed Sam out of prison to get to enlist Sam's help with finding the treasure. Now obviously Sam fabricated this lie to actually get Nate to help him, because obviously Nate, being a married man and holding down a decent regular job and being retired from treasure hunting and adventure, wouldn't help Sam unless the circumstances were severe. So he fabricated the lie, and you know, it didn't end well. Nate wasn't happy with Sam, and Rafe actually tries to shoot Sam, or he tries to shoot Nate, but Sam gets in the way, trying to protect his little brother, obviously. And, you know, he hits Sam, but then Sam accidentally bumps into Nate, and Nate falls off a cliff. While recovering... Oh, fuck. While unconscious, Elena actually pulled him out of the river and nursed him back to health. It turns out Elena actually, you know, came back for Nate, and, you know, decided to help him. So together, Elena and Nate go to rescue Sam from Rafe and Nadine's clutches. And of course, while doing this, simultaneously looking for clues for Henry Avery's treasure. Eventually they do find Sam and see him running away from Nadine and Rafe's mercenaries. Obviously they go help him, and then they reunite with him. Although this isn't a good time for Sam and Elena to have a proper introduction with each other, because, you know, they're running for their lives from mercenaries. Eventually, Sam, Elena and Nate do find a way off the island through Sully. It turns out Sully had actually come back on his plane. That's also how Elena got there in the first place. But when they're about to escape off of Sully's plane, Sam decides to go the other way and go for the treasure. Of course, Nate isn't happy about this, and actually considers leaving Sam. Until Elena, of course, talks some sense into Nate, you know, saying, like, go rescue your brother, he's your brother. And then Nate reluctantly goes after Sam. It turns out they do actually locate the treasure, and unfortunately run into Rafe and Nadine. Now, Nadine actually backstabs Rafe and leaves him in the burning ship where the treasure is with Nate. Sam got injured and trapped trying to find the treasure, so he's out of commission. So it just leaves Rafe and Nate. Now, instead of Rafe actually trying to look for a way to escape, he decides to duel Nate on the burning ship with a sword. So Nate and Rafe engage in a sword fight. Of course, Nate ends up winning. Rafe gets crushed by the treasure, and then goes to help Sam. But it turns out Sam is trapped, and the ship is about to explode, so Sam suggests to just leave him and run. But Nate comes up with the idea of shooting the bottom of the ship with a cannon, so the water goes in the ship, and then the big, you know, like, fucking, I don't know what it is, but like, it obviously the water makes it lighter, so Nate can lift it up and free Sam. Then, obviously they escape from the ship, They get rescued by Sully and Elena. They go on the plane, and the trip's over. Now, at the end, Nate and Elena part ways with Sam and Sully. It's implied by the ending cutscene here that Sam and Sully actually end up joining forces and doing jobs together, while Nate, being retired, goes back to, his regular job with his wife Elena. In the epilogue, it's revealed that Nate and Elena actually had a daughter. Her name is Cassie, named after Nate's late mother. Much like her father and mother, Cassie also likes the idea of treasure hunting and adventuring and wants to do it herself. The thing is, though, Nate has actually never really told Cassie much about his past as a treasure hunter and adventurer. Eventually, she goes snooping around and finds Nate's old journals and artifacts. He catches her doing this and just decides to spill the beans about his past, like all the adventures from the previous Uncharted games, obviously his adventures with Sully and Elena. It's implied at the end of the epilogue that Cassie will eventually follow in her father's footsteps. And the game pretty much just ends.